I walked into the courtroom, the heavy wooden doors closing behind me with a familiar, solid thud. The air was the same as it is every single day, a stale mix of cheap perfume, anxiety, and the faint, lingering scent of bad decisions. I took my seat, adjusted my robe, and picked up the case file. I don't need to read it for long. The names, the numbers, the complaint, it's always a variation on the same theme. Somebody did something stupid and now they want me to fix it. Fine. That's what they pay me for. I looked over my glasses at the two individuals standing before me. The plaintiff, a woman in her late 30s, was clutching her purse so hard her knuckles were white. She looked nervous but resolute. She believed she was right, and she was here for justice. Good for her. Then my eyes shifted to the defendant. He was young, maybe 19 or 20. He had that slouch of unearned confidence, a slight smirk playing on his lips, as if this were all a minor inconvenience. A funny story he'd tell his friends later. Mistake number one? All right, let's get this over with, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Plaintiff, you're suing Mr. Riley for $3,452 for damages to your vehicle. You claim he hit your car and then fled the scene. Is that correct? The woman, Miss Davis, nodded. Yes, Your Honor. He clipped my rear bumper in the parking lot of the supermarket, got out of his car, looked at the damage, and then just drove off. I turned to the defendant. The smirk hadn't faded. Mr. Riley, is that what happened? He puffed out his chest a little. Not exactly, Judge. I leaned back. Oh, good. I love creative storytelling. Dazzle me. What's your not exactly version? I mean, I tapped her car. Yeah. It was barely a scratch. I got out, I looked, and she wasn't even there. I had to get to work. My dad's a lieutenant with the Providence PD, and he told me that for something that minor, you just leave a note. I stared at him, letting the silence hang in the air. My brain was processing the sheer stupidity of that statement. First, he admits he hit the car. Second, he admits he left. Third, and this is the trifecta of foolishness, he drags his father's name into it. He thinks that name is a shield. In my courtroom, it's a target. Your father, I said, my voice dangerously low, a lieutenant in the police department. So he's a man who understands the law. Is that what you're telling me? Yes, ma'am. He's one of the best. Wonderful. So this paragon of law enforcement told you that when you damage someone's property, the correct legal procedure is to decide for them that it's minor and then just leave? The smirk finally faltered. Well, I was going to leave a note. Did you? I snapped. Yes or no? This isn't a philosophy class. Did you leave? A, note. I didn't have a pen. I almost laughed. It was so pathetic, so utterly transparent. This is the kind of excuse a 5-year-old makes. You didn't have a pen. You're in a supermarket parking lot, a place that famously sells, among other things, pens. And you, a man with a car, a wallet, and presumably a brain, couldn't procure a simple writing utensil? He shifted his weight. I was in a hurry. You were in a hurry to flee the scene of an accident you caused. I corrected him. Miss Davis, did he have an opportunity to see if you were there? Were you in the store? I was, Your Honor, she said, her voice stronger now. But as I was walking out, I saw him pulling away. A man who saw the whole thing gave me his license plate number. That's how I found him. The man said he saw Mr. Riley get out, look right at the dent, shrug, and then get back in his car and speed off. I turned my gaze back to the defendant. The unearned confidence was leaking out of him like air from a cheap balloon. So now we have a witness who saw you commit a hit and run. But you want me to believe the I didn't have a pen story brought to you by the son of a police lieutenant? I leaned forward, placing my hands flat on the bench. Let me tell you something, Mr. Riley. In this courtroom, your father's title means less than nothing. It doesn't get you a pass. It doesn't make your lies more believable. In fact, it makes your behavior even more disgraceful. You used your father's good name as an excuse to be irresponsible. You think that badge gives you cover? Son, You just painted a bullseye on your back. He swallowed hard. The smirk was long gone, replaced by the dawning, terrified realization that he had walked into the wrong room and tried to play the wrong card with the wrong judge. His little charade was over. My work was just beginning. I picked up the witness statement. Now, I said, the paper crisp in my hand, let's talk about this witness. Let's talk about this witness, I repeated, my voice flat. I held up the single sheet of paper. His name is Carl Peterson, age 72, retired postal worker. You know what I love about retired postal workers, Mr. Riley? They spend 40 years paying attention to details, addresses, names, people's routines. They're professional observers. And on the day in question, Mr. Peterson was sitting on a bench outside the supermarket, enjoying the sun and observing you. I adjusted my glasses and read directly from his signed statement. I heard a loud crunching sound and looked up. A young man in a black sedan had just backed into a parked red car. A crunching sound, Mr. Riley. Not a tap. He goes on. The young man got out. He looked annoyed. He walked to the rear of the red car, ran his hand over a very large dent in the bumper, then looked around quickly left and right. I paused, lifting my eyes from the page to stare directly at him. His face was pale. The blood had drained right out of it. Now, this is the interesting part. A person looking for the owner of the car they just hit would look towards the store. They might look for someone walking towards the car. But Mr. Peterson here, our professional observer, says you looked around quickly, left and right, like you were checking for witnesses, not for the victim. Is that what you were doing, Mr. Riley? Were you casing the joint to make sure you could get away clean? No, I was just, he stammered, his voice a fraction of its earlier confidence. I was looking to see if she was coming out. Baloney, I said, tossing the paper onto my desk. That's a lie and you know it. He saw you. He saw you assess the damage, realize it was significant, and make a calculated decision to flee. And then he did what any good citizen would do. He took out a pen. Imagine that, a 72-year-old man who managed to have a pen on his person, and he wrote down your license plate number. He then waited for Miss Davis to come out of the store and gave it to her. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the evidence settle in the room. So now we have a hit and run, a lie about the severity of the impact, a lie about your intentions, a lie about not having a pen, and a credible, impartial witness who blows your entire ridiculous story out of the water. Your case is leaking, Mr. Riley. It's sinking fast. I turned my attention to the core of the matter. Miss Davis, I have the repair estimate you submitted. Total cost, $3,452.18 for a new bumper assembly, a new right taillight, and labor to repair and repaint the quarter panel. Mr. Riley, I fixed him with a glare. The defendant has characterized this as barely a scratch. Officer Byrd, please hand the defendant exhibits A, B, and C the photographs of the damage. My bailiff, a man who has seen more nonsense than anyone should have to in a lifetime, handed the glossy photos to the young man. I watched him take them. His hands were trembling slightly. Look at them, I commanded. Don't just glance. Look at the crushed plastic. Look at the spiderweb cracks in the taillight. Look at the deep gouges in the paint. Now look at me and tell me that's a scratch. He stared at the photos, his mouth opening and closing silently. He had nothing. The pictorial evidence was irrefutable. His lie was laid bare not just by testimony, but by cold, hard reality captured on film. Does that look like something you can just walk away from? I pressed. Does that look minor to you? Is that what your father, the police lieutenant, would consider minor damage? Bringing his father back into it was deliberate. I wanted to see him squirm. I wanted him to understand that the name he tried to use as a shield was now the very thing I was using to highlight his shame. A police officer's son, of all people, should know better. The expectation is higher, not lower. It looked different at the time, he mumbled. A pathetic, last-ditch effort to salvage some shred of his story. Oh, it looked different? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Did the dent magically grow larger on the way to the photo developer? Did the taillight smash itself out of sheer loneliness after you drove away? Stop it. Just stop. The hole you're digging has reached the center of the earth. You're done. You got caught. He dropped the photos on his podium as if they were hot. He finally understood. There was no escape. There was no clever argument. There was just the ugly truth and the bill that came with it. And I was about to deliver it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the spoiled child under the tough guy facade. He was used to getting his way. He was used to his father's position clearing a path for him. He probably thought he could come in here, flash a name, tell a flimsy story, and I'd just roll my eyes and split the difference. He had no concept of personal responsibility because he'd likely never been forced to have any. Here's the problem, Mr. Riley. I began, my tone shifting from confrontational to instructional. I wasn't just here to pass judgment. I was here to teach a life lesson, whether he wanted to learn it or not. You don't seem to understand the fundamental principle of living in a civilized society. When you damage something that belongs to someone else, you are responsible for making them whole. Period. It's not debatable. It's not up for discussion. It's not something you get to decide is minor and walk away from. He stared at the floor, refusing to meet my eyes. That's what people do when the truth becomes too bright to look at. You had a choice in that parking lot, I continued, ticking off the points on my fingers. Choice A, the decent, responsible adult choice. You find a pen, you write a note with your name, phone number, and insurance information. You apologize for the accident. You take responsibility. It's simple. It's what honest people do. Choice B, the cowardly, dishonest, illegal choice. You lie to yourself that it's not a big deal. You look around to make sure no one is watching. You get in your car and you speed away, leaving this woman with a damaged vehicle and a bill that isn't hers to pay. You chose B, Mr. Riley. You chose the path of a coward. His head snapped up at that word. I'm not a coward. Really? I shot back. Then what do you call it? What do you call running away from a problem you created? That's the textbook definition of cowardice. And what's worse is that you were so arrogant about it. You came in here with a smirk on your face, ready to lie to a judge, and you invoked your father's name as if it was some magic password. You didn't just disrespect Miss Davis and her property. You didn't just disrespect the law. You disrespected your own father. That hit a nerve. I saw it flicker in his eyes. The shame was finally starting to burn. Your father wears a uniform and a badge, I said, my voice hard as steel. He puts his life on the line to uphold the law. He represents order, integrity, and responsibility. And you, his son, behave like a common thug. You commit a hit and run and then try to use his good name to get away with it? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is for him? Do you think he's proud of you today? Do you think he'd be proud to know his son came into a court of law and told a string of pathetic lies? Silence. The air in the room was thick with it. Miss Davis stood perfectly still, watching the drama unfold. The defendant looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. I'm going to tell you what your father should have told you a long time ago, I said, leaning forward on my elbows. Your actions have consequences. You are not special. The rules apply to you just like they apply to everyone else. Your last name is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. In the real world, you have to answer for what you do. I picked up my gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the full amount of $3,000 for $252.18. I slammed the gavel down. The sound echoed in the quiet room. It was final. But we're not done, I said, looking right at him, because this isn't just about the money. This is about your flagrant disregard for the law. I turned to my bailiff. Officer Byrd, please give a copy of Mr. Peterson's witness statement and the judgment from this court to the Providence Police Department's internal affairs and also to the district attorney's office. This was a hit and run. Let's see if they think it's as minor as the defendant does. His eyes went wide with panic. What? No, you can't do that. Oh, I can, I said with a thin, cold smile. I just did. You wanted to involve the Providence P.D.? Congratulations. They're involved. I looked at Miss Davis. You're all set, ma'am. You'll get your money. You can leave. She gave me a grateful nod and walked out. I kept my gaze locked on Mr. Riley. He was rooted to the spot, the reality of his situation crashing down on him. This wasn't just about paying for a bumper anymore. This had escalated. He had turned a civil infraction into a potential criminal matter through his own stupidity and arrogance. A word of advice, son, I said as he stood there, completely stunned. The next time you're in a hole, stop digging, and for heaven's sake, buy yourself a pen. You're dismissed. He stumbled out of the courtroom, not with a swagger, but with the shuffling gait of someone who'd just been handed a bill for his own arrogance. Officer Byrd closed the door behind him. I took a sip of water, the cold liquid doing little to wash away the bitter taste of youthful entitlement. It's a flavor I've become all too familiar with. Every day, a new parade of people marches in here thinking the rules are for everyone else. They believe they are the exception. They are always wrong. I glanced at the clock on the wall. We were running ahead of schedule, a rare occurrence. Usually, the day is a slog through convoluted lies and nonsensical excuses that stretch a 15-minute case into a 45-minute ordeal. But this was clean. It was a straight line from A to B. He did it. He lied about it. He got caught. This simplicity was almost refreshing. My mind, however, kept circling back to the father, the lieutenant. I wondered what that phone call would be like. Would the son call him frantic and crying? Or would the first call the father receives be from his own department, from an internal affairs sergeant asking him to come in and discuss an incident involving his son? An incident where his name was used as a shield for a petty crime. There's no pride in that. There's only shame and disappointment. A man works his whole life to build a reputation for integrity, for honor, only to have his own child tarnish it in a supermarket parking lot over a dented bumper. It's pathetic, but my job isn't to worry about the family dynamics of every fool who walks through my doors. My job is to adjudicate the facts and apply the law. The fact is, the son is an adult. He drove the car. He made the decision to flee. He stood in my courtroom and lied to my face. He owns that, all of it. The father's rank doesn't change the son's culpability. If anything, it makes the moral failure more profound. To whom much is given, much is expected. This kid was given the example of a law-abiding father, and he chose to be a lawbreaker. I picked up the next file, a dispute between former roommates over a security deposit and a supposedly stolen iguana. Of course, just when I thought the day couldn't get any more idiotic, I sighed. From the hubris of a cop's son to the mystery of a missing reptile, this is my world. I pressed the button on my console. Bring in the next case, Officer Byrd. As the new plaintiff and defendant shuffled in, their faces masks of petty grievance, I couldn't help but think about Mr. Riley one last time. Maybe, just maybe, this public humiliation would be the wake-up call he so desperately needed. Maybe having to face not just a civil judgment, but a potential criminal charge. And the profound disappointment of his father would finally teach him that actions have consequences. Maybe he'd finally learn that character isn't about whose son you are. It's about the choices you make when you think no one is watching. But then I looked at the file in my hands. A stolen iguana named Spike. Probably not. Some people never learn. The new plaintiff started speaking, her voice trembling with manufactured outrage. Your Honor, she stole my emotional support iguana. I cut her off. Ma'am, let's get one thing straight. It's a lizard. It doesn't have emotions, and I doubt it's supporting yours. Now, tell me what happened, and spare me the melodrama. The day continued. Another case. Another set of bad decisions. That's the rhythm of this place. The relentless, predictable drumbeat of human folly. And I sit here, day after day, trying to impose a little logic, a little common sense on a world that seems to have so little of either. My name is on the wall. but my real job is to be the voice of reason in a room full of noise. And in the case of the police officer's son, the message was simple and clear. In the eyes of the law, and certainly in the eyes of this court, everyone is treated the same. Fair, no exceptions. No special passes. Just the cold, hard truth. And Bill 4, Tre 400, the 2 Trades komme et ode.